What's up, y'all? Your boy, Mr. Steel, local real estate agent here in DFW. And today I wanted to do a Monday morning market analysis. I hope your Monday morning is going great. I think it's going to be afternoon by the time I get this out. So I hope the rest of your Monday goes great. But I did want to talk about a client discussion I had without obviously dropping any personal information, but just I thought it was a really productive, interesting conversation that I think you'll be interested in hearing, as well as a short Monday morning market analysis on where the market is headed, what it looks like, and what the overall temperature is. Okay. As always, this is not legal advice or financial advice. Let's hop into it. So, first and foremost, talking about the market, I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area. So, I wanted to kind of jump in on my local market. And so, for the month of March, we led the nation in home closings and home sales. Okay. So that's looking really good. Now, again, I still feel like we have been in a slightly more buyer's market. I wouldn't say it's a strong buyer's market, but we have been seeing price reductions, homes kind of sitting. But even in the climate we've been kind of coming out of and sitting in for the last several months to a year or two, still holding strong, which speaks to the strength of the DFW market and why you should consider buying into this market for times to come. As I've been saying in tons of videos in the past, this is like the next 10 years Silicon Valley. Businesses, influx of people, residents, home purchases, money. Like this thing is growing and growth is good for assets, right? And so the real estate market is a great place to put some money and buy an asset or two or three or four or 20 because I think you're going to get great returns in equity on that. So again, I had the analytics pulled up for you, but I'll just break it down. We're doing fine in DFW, even in a not great market where there's been uncertainty and there's been kind of like hesitancy because of like the tariff negotiations and trade deals. We've been holding pretty strong, which is impressive to say the least, and just backs all the advice I've been giving and real estate type of advice that's related to this particular market and why you should consider buying into the Dallas Fort Worth market. All right, cool. So let's talk about my client conversation that I had. So my client called me. It's one of my buyers who's been looking to buy in the market. They sold back in January and they've been kind of buying their time. They got some money in the bank and, we've looked at a few houses on Zillow, this and that, and they're just on the fence, right? And so super eager to buy, called me the other day and basically their sentiment was like, hey, I hear we might be getting some rate cuts. Should I wait? Okay. And so I think a lot of buyers all over the country are going to make this fatal mistake. Okay. They're going to wait for an interest rate cut so that they can win on the back end. They can win on their interest rates. Okay. I understand that sentiment, but I think you're missing an opportunity to have your cake and eat it too. And here's what I mean. All right. I like to try to win as many ways as possible. And I think you can win in this market on the front end and the back end because right now, I still think buyers have a little bit more negotiating power than the sellers. Okay. I did a review last week on a couple houses. Most of them are still sitting on the market 1 to 3 months, if not more. And pretty much every one of those houses had some pretty significant reductions in price. I think starting at like 25,000 all the way up to $60,000 in price reductions. So if you can win on the front end and save tens of thousands of dollars, have more negotiating ability, maybe get some seller credits for upgrades or repairs, which is happening right now, then you should. And then later on, if we do get those rate cuts, you can refinance. You're not married to the interest rate you get now, right? So a lot of that interest will be unrealized and you refinance it later on for a more favorable interest rate. And, therefore you win on the front and the back end of the deal, right? If you're a seller, the good news is I think there's about to be a swing in the market and the time to sell is upon us and you're going to be in a way more advantageous position than if you were selling a few months ago. So you're definitely going to be able to start winning even more as a seller soon. And the time to move as a buyer is now. If you're a buyer, run, do not walk because you can potentially get your cake and eat it too. You do not want to wait for interest rates to drop, which I think they will, and I'll go into it here in a second, because you're going to have a bunch of buyers come into the market. You're going to have way more competition. That's going to put prices up. You're not going to be able to negotiate the deals you can get right now, okay? Assets in general, it seems like it's a good time to buy. This market is primed, as I talked about in past videos recently. It seems primed. Any kind of good news at all right now, and the market wants to blip. We've got a pretty pretty significant blip right now. And to your benefit, it's not getting very good favorable media coverage, which I'll go into just right now. And then I'm going to wrap this up with interest rates and what's going on with the interest rates. Okay. So let's watch this video. This is Scott Bessent. This is the Secretary of Treasury on why there's a bit of a lag on sentiment and the temperature of the market. And some of it's got to do with unfavorable media coverage that he's pointing out here.
I look at some of the things that are being published. There was a story 10 days ago that said this is the worst April for the stock market since the Great Depression. 10 days later, the NASDAQ is now up on the month of April, and I haven't seen a story that says, oh, stock market has biggest bounce back ever. So
it certainly has gone back and forth.
I think a lot of this is media driven.
Recovery for markets looks to be on.
It certainly has been all over the place, blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, so he's pointing out in this video, like, dude, we're having one of the biggest bounce backs ever, and there's been no favorable media coverage. And like, you can hear it in her tone. She's got an attitude. She doesn't want to recognize that. Like, give this like, seriously, this is money. Okay, this is the market. This is your money. This is your bank account. This is your business, right? You've got to take emotions and politics out of it a little bit. I'm happy to shine a light on something any administration is doing I do not like, right? But if you're not willing to give the administration their flowers, right, you're robbing yourself of good data to make good business decisions. And so I think there's a lot of people who are getting tunnel vision news and echo chamber news, and they're going to get this news a little late. And this is why this information could be very valuable for you to make some good investment decisions now, because it's looking good. The market's already rebounding, crypto stocks, etc. Right? So again, you don't want to wait till all of the news is good. The tariff, trade deals are kind of negotiated. They're bringing good news to the table. There's going to be some trade deals made. That's going to pump the market. And then if interest rates are cut, that's going to be great to the market. So let's talk about interest rates and then I'll wrap this up. Okay. So again, my client was, I think interest rates are going to go. Should I wait? Right. And I gave them my 2 cents. And then I asked them, why do you think they're going to cut rates? And they didn't really know. They were just kind of like, I saw like a TikTok or I saw like a YouTube or whatever. And, I didn't really get I just think they're going to get cut. Like they couldn't tell me why. Okay. And so here's one reason why I think there's actually some legitimate possibility for these cuts. And I think it was a statement Trump made the other day. So let's watch this together and then break it down. I'll let you get out of here.
The Bible.
So to clarify, you have no intention of firing Jerome Powell because your economic advisor Kevin Hassett a few days ago said that you and people in the White House were studying this idea of possibly getting before his term ends. No. Do you have any plans on doing that?
None whatsoever. Never did. The press runs away with things. No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No, it's not. But it would be good timing. It could have taken place earlier. But no, I have no intention to fire him.
Okay, that's espresso, by the way, guys. So yeah, this is important. Again, if someone's just saying they're going to cut rates, my question is why? What gives you that impression? And again, if you've paid any attention with Trump and Jerome Powell, whether it's the way the media has painted it, or in general, just some of the statements Trump has made, it's been like this, right? And so this statement gives me it just feels like a conversation has been had. Someone talked to someone and it's like, all right, you're going to get some, it feels like Trump's maybe got a conversation saying you're going to get what you want, right? You're going to get some interest rate cuts because Trump wants interest rate cuts for a multitude of reasons. It'll help stabilize and spur the market while these tariff negotiations are happening until he gets to bring some good news about trade deals that were made to the table, which will also bump the market. But it stabilizes that as well as he needs to finance this administration's, 4-year cost, right? And that estimate's something like $6 trillion. That's a lot of freaking interest. A rate cut or 2 or 3 or 4 could be significant. I mean, you could save hundreds of billions of dollars in interest for this administration and the taxpayer in the country if we get a rate cut. So that is that's really significant. And this 180 that Trump kind of has towards Jerome Powell, it gives me the impression that these rate cuts are like really possible. Like it's legit. Like we're probably going to get some rate cuts. You know, I don't think like necessarily Jerome Powell and Trump talked, but I think someone talked to someone. There was a conversation behind closed doors or emails or something, man. You know, and Trump is like, I'm getting what I want. Cool. Like, nah, I never planned on firing Jerome Powell. You know, we're cool, bro. You know, no big deal. I wish he'd do this, you know, but like, you know, it's all good in the neighborhood. It's going to be good no matter what, right? So, yeah, I think Trump's getting what he wants. I think there's rate cuts on the horizon. And again, this is pertinent information for you, especially as a buyer and a seller. If you're a buyer, run, do not walk. Don't buy once the market is hot and bouncing back. Because once these rate cuts start happening, people are going to run. Even before it's even affecting like consumer loans and residential home loans, they're going to jump to the market. And as a seller, you may want to pump the brakes just a little bit if you can afford to. If you need to sell, cool, because you're probably going to find yourself, even if you list like tomorrow, you're probably going to find yourself in a better market in 30, 45 days from now anyway. So that's not the end of the world. But if you can pump the brakes and maybe list next month or in June, you're going to be looking even better. So great news for sellers on the horizon. You're probably going to see a much more advantageous market to be selling in. And as a buyer, the time is now, okay? So if you found this valuable, please like and subscribe on YouTube, comment below. I see if I can get this on Instagram if the video is not too long. Feel free to DM me at any time if you have any questions or you're in the DFW market and you're interested in buying and selling. I'd love to get on the phone with you, you know, strategize. Always happy to list, schedule showings, whatever you need. I will be sure to take care of you. And I hope you have a great Monday, and I'll see you next time. Peace.